Hey everybody, Jeremy with Avalo. Today I want to tell you about small space gardening and how to kind of pick that perfect spot so you get really the best produce and all the great stuff that you want to grow, and you're not limited by the conditions. I found it's actually really common to actually have difficulty picking your the right spot because there's a lot of factors to consider. So the three I'm going to really talk to you about today are heat and light. So those are kind of the two, like temperature and the amount of sun you get, as well as the wind. It's kind of something that you don't necessarily think about, but it's can be really important when it comes to your garden. So talking about the first, light. How much light does your garden need? Do you want something that's in full sun? Do you want something that gets partial shade? Depends on the season, and one of the things to think about is how the sun changes and how the sun sets over time. So we're here in October, and we can actually see it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and our garden is actually getting quite a bit of shade. You can see the line here of where the shade's at already at 4 p.m. So we're not getting as much sun. So there are definitely things that are going to be placed on one side of the garden versus the other. This is not a small space garden. It's our show garden here in Santa Rosa. However, it is something that can impact you is even on a balcony or a deck. So I'm actually going to walk over and show you kind of how that line looks as we get to some of our smaller space test units we have here. So I can actually show you, step back a bit, but you can see that we have kind of 3 units. You can actually see this line here of the shade versus sun, and so even that placement is really like 6 feet of the placement. So it goes from full sun to kind of partial shade, and so that's definitely something to consider. The hotter your area is, the hotter the season is. You actually probably want to get more shade into it, especially for smaller space gardens. You don't have as much mass in order to kind of counteract the sun and heat that's coming into, so your plants are going to get hotter than if they were in the similar space in the ground or in a bigger garden. So definitely something to look at. In the summer, you probably want partial shade in most areas of the country, especially here in California. And as you get into kind of the winter months, you do actually want more sun because you're kind of trying to balance that out and give your plants a better growing lifetime. So the flip side of that is plants that are planted in the fall and winter can actually handle a little bit more cold weather. So it's not something that you need to worry about. It's like, oh my God, is it going to get to freezing? Am I going to lose my plants? If it's a broccoli or anything in the brassica family, spinach, arugula, etc., those actually taste better when they get a little bit colder. So definitely okay on that front of it, but you want to make sure that your plants are going to be able to maintain that kind of healthy growing temperatures, and the root temperature is really one of the things to look at. So it's not what you're seeing in the air temperature, it's what the plants are actually feeling on inside where they're growing. So that's definitely the temperature and light component. Wind, I'll talk really quickly about that. If you're in a high wind situation, we see this a lot on balconies where you're a couple floors up. You have definitely a lot of direct wind, or you're around the corner of a building where it becomes a wind tunnel. That can really impact the health and success of your plants. So you want to have a place that's somewhat sheltered but gets enough airflow to allow really good evaporation, drying out. You actually want a nice airflow. You want pollinators to come in but not have too much wind for them to fly against. Really, it's a matter of kind of that nice balance. But it isn't something that, if you have a lot of wind, you just want to grow lower plants. So they're not going to take as much, or non-flowering, non-fruiting plants. So lettuces, greens will do really well in that type of condition. And if you have kind of like the low to perfect wind, you have more options, but you're not limited just because you have too much or non-optimal amounts of something. So those are the things to consider. Drop us a line if you have any questions. We're definitely around to help you have more successful harvests. So again, Jeremy with Avalo. Have a great one, everyone.